Today I want to speak to you about the pound of flesh and Shylock, because the conditions are such that we indict someone, put him on the dock, and we begin to persecute, and that person is forced to defend. So Shylock was a character in Shakespeare's Merchant of Venice, and the story has it that his friend Bassanio, Shylock was always envious about a fellow merchant, Antonio, and Antonio's friend Bassanio needed a loan, and Antonio became the guarantor, and Shylock said, if you default payment, I will cut out a pound of flesh from your chest. So it was such a gruesome but unlikely thing. Antonio agreed, and the papers were signed, and Bassanio defaulted. So Antonio was hauled before court, and as the story has it, it was a lady judge, Portia, who was the magistrate or the judge at that time, and in delivering the sentence, she told Shylock, you will cut off a pound of flesh, not 1/4 of an ounce more or 1/4 of an ounce less. Then Shylock realized that he is trapped, and Antonio's life was saved by a mediator, a negotiator, who offered a solution. So what are the characteristics of a Shylock, and how is a Shylock made, and why are we prone to such behavior at such a time as this? So a Shylock is one who came under a demand for a pound of flesh when he was young. It may have been at home, it might have been about his performance. A demand was placed on him, and he grew under a heavy yoke of oppression, a heavy demand that he should match up to some standard. And that got ingrained into his bones and into his ways, demand. And his supply was less than the demand, or demand was too much for this boy to perform. Secondly, you had long hours of secret anxiety because the demand exceeded your supply of loving kindness. So every child grows with a measure of loving kindness from parents and from siblings maybe, but when he finds that the demand made on him is too great, and he gets assailed with words and lectures and whatnot, he begins to feel that he has no way, no escape. So this gets into his soul, this gets into his persona, that the world is a place of no escape. And he will begin to practice that on others even in his younger days, and no escape world without a second chance, and so on. Point number 3, in adult life, you see Shylock in any scene. As you grow up, you look at everybody with a squint in your eye. You feel that person will also lay this heavy yoke of oppression, court indictment on me. Every word of correction you begin to feel as a word of condemnation. So this is why children need more celebration than correction. Certainly correction is needed, maybe 5-to-1 ratio, celebration, well done, and then correction. So in adult life, such children, as they grow up, they begin to see Shylock in anybody. Any senior looks at Shylock, and you yourself treat yourself with demand and perform or perish, swim or sink kind of mentality. You have to do it perfect. Otherwise you condemn yourself because you're always trying to match up to an expectation. And you may do this to others who are close to you, whoever gets close to you. Point number 4, then others begin to pick up your attitude of Shylock, that it's always they had to be guarded with their words, or else a court case begins, an indictment begins, and they take guard. Point number 5, your life swings between attack or defense mode, because sometimes you're attacking someone like a Shylock. At another time you feel as if you are under the hammer. You are being weighed on a scale that you have to perform. So you become attack or aggressive in mode, or you become withdrawn and guarded all the time, wondering where will a missile come at me to put me down. Then point number 6, you become severe on those who get close to you. You mark them down and you mark up your contribution. So always in your mind, others begin to feel that your eyes are weighing up, calculating, sizing up, marking others down for their contribution, marking yourself up regarding your contribution. Point number 7, there's censure in your words or behavior, in your mood, and you're always, it's like a debit relationship. You make it known with your words and with your attitudes, responses. There's a written or unwritten condition others have to sign up to be included in your favored list, so to say. Now you are acting out of a past that saw many things come at you where you were weighed by others and always found wanting. Sort of a wise goes on saying, weighed and found wanting. So this is a situation many can face, where when you have been always judged for weaknesses, and you came out on the other side feeling wanting, and put on a weighing scale and found wanting, measured up, and always you measured less. So at correction times, Red Cross marks came on you. It was as if someone was marking your behavior with an invisible pen. You know, when we had red ink, those fountain pens with flowing ink, a maths teacher may get very angry and mark a child wrong, and the red patch may go through many pages, and a child may try to remove those papers where he was marked wrong, or adjust the report because he was scared to take it home. Teacher may angrily mark such a thing, and it has gone through. Then when you were angry because the error by the one who's near and dear to you hurt you. So when you are trying to correct or put it right, that you are acting with a vengeance of hurt inside you, and the child or whoever it is begins to feel that. So in correcting, you become vengeful with words or cane, getting even with wrongdoer, rather than correcting that person for that person's betterment. Then any new error triggers in you something that was done against you, wronged you, and so this one you feel is wronging you, though he has made an error on his own. You take it as if you were wronged. So in exacting correction, dues, you add up old scores of she owes me, he owes me, because older incidents get added on to the new ones. So in correcting children or whoever, don't add up the old ones to the present one. Just tackle the present and go forward. Before correcting, you might have to cleanse your attitude of former hurt and debt dues. So I'm giving a background of why a Shylock behaves like that, and the Shylock nature comes up, especially when someone is found wanting and weak. Because the world doesn't want people who are weak. World is always looking for people who are strong, because world has believed in struggle for existence, might is right, survival of the fittest. However, I want to tell you, our good shepherd did not make the world like that. He made us with different abilities, which means in some areas we are weak, in some areas we are strong, especially when making marriage. We complement each other. The weakness of one is filled up by the strength of the other, and vice versa. So when correcting, the one who's correcting should be redeeming by supplying some goodness to the errant spouse, child, friend or junior. This is the principle of the cross. The good shepherd supplied what was lacking in us. But when a Shylock works in you, and because father love failed or was absent, this may happen with mother love also, your eye is on how much more should be done for you or by someone else rather than a thank you. So you, as I said earlier, you mark up what you do, mark down what others do. So you get into a perform and prove mode. I'll show them what I can do. And you drive yourselves even to depression and anxiety. And anxiety is where your demand exceeds your supply of kindness, ability, grace. Now, Good Shepherd is not like that. He supplies enough grace. That's the promise we have. In our need, there is grace supplied. When we are going through a valley of difficulty, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in pastures of green and by still waters. So every time there's in your next step, there is another fountain He prepares, another good space, good patch that you. So we have expectation of a good patch and a good next step when the Good Shepherd is in our life. And when we are going through a valley, everybody goes through a valley, His rod and His staff, they comfort me, and He has already prepared a path without potholes, without rough terrain. It's called a path of righteousness. And if the valley is a little longer, then we know it is because a promotion is coming and we are being trained to fit us for the promotion that we have in life. And that promotion is called, He prepares a table for me in spite of adversities and adversaries. For a time like this, we need this hope that the present difficulties we face will be overcome by a hope God gives us. With the Shylock, there's always a battle waiting. Embattled is the feeling, a task addiction, barking out commands, hard to please. And even regarding you, you have standards and extreme measures. You sort of always, you're on a dopamine-driven mode because you feel you have to perform and prove. So always there's a bad expectation of how another is going to perform according to your index. But our Good Shepherd says, in your weakness, my strength will be perfected. This is the principle of the cross, that all the brutal things human beings do to each other, lacerations, incisions, abrasions, contusions, all the forensic injuries that medicine describes, came upon the victim on the cross. The cross was an innovation of the Assyrians round about 740 BC, and Romans took that up as their mode of execution. Sri Lanka had 32 forms of torture, ending up with death. One form of torture practiced by the last Kandyan king, Sri Vikramaraj Singha, was whipping people to death. His court, the wall of his royal court, has many ornate whips which were granted to him, which were gifted to him by officials or his court officials who came to meet him. They knew that the king was fond of this whips, and he would personally whip a person by the Mahavali river in Katugastota even to death. Then the story goes that where that blood was shed, later dogs and wolves would come to lick the blood. Many stories surround that era, but I just gave you the instance of a whip being used in your life by some Shylock, or you using a whip. So this nature can get into a race, and we can become a nation of people who are whipping someone. And even on social media, until you whip someone, people, and they whip mercilessly. The only thing what you do to others, what goes around comes around. That's why we need to take care how we react to people and how we take vengeance. So if you have wondered why is the cross so terrible, is all human vengeance exacted, all dead dues, all Shylock behavior of humans to each other came on the Good Shepherd on the cross. And on the cross, his first word was, Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they do. So this is how he unveiled a new way of dealing with each other through forgiveness. So on the cross, a person dies not because of bleeding, but because when you are hung on a cross, you can inhale the air, you breathe, you inhale, but you can't exhale, because when your feet are suspended off the ground, the diaphragm cannot work and the thoracic cage is not working properly to put the air out. So the air begins to accumulate in the thoracic cavity around the lungs. And then when that pressure builds up, lungs can't work properly, and the lung blood circulation, pulmonary circulation gets obstructed. Then the right side of the heart is thin, the right ventricle. It has to pump blood into this high pressure system in the lung. And then the right heart of the heart begins to fail, and fluid begins to accumulate outside the heart. And that's called cardiac tamponade. So a patient hanging on the cross dies by inhaling and they can't put it out. It's a terrible form of death. So that terrible expression of death on the cross sort of embodied and symbolized how humans have treated each other, but the Good Shepherd took it all, and his final words were, "It is finished." The court case is finished, indictment is finished, what you have received at the end of a Shylock, or what you have done as a Shylock, exacting the pound of flesh, is finished. All human indictments came on the cross, on the Good Shepherd, and he gives us his mercy and his forgiveness. This is called reconciliation. So whenever we want to correct a child or someone else, if you have the Good Shepherd in you, you can invite him into your life. You're not talking retribution, you're talking redemption. So all those red cross marks that have said negative, wrong, you are no more writing errors, WRITING, writing and taking count of that was wrong, this was wrong, with your spouse or with your child or with your friend, but you learn how to write errors, RIGHT. That's the redemption of the cross. That's what the Good Shepherd does. So I began my talk about the Shylock nature in each of us, which can get very bad at this time with much disappointment, many things to react against. But my suggestion is, without reacting against, let's find little measures of remedy within our power to help someone in need. That's the need of the hour. Thank you for listening. I am Dr. Lalith Mendis. My last substantive post was as head of Department of Pharmacology in the medical faculty. And if you like any of these clips, please send me a WhatsApp number for different subjects. These clips are available, 2076-313-4800, or you can download my app, Golden Nuggets, from Google or App Store. So I want you to consider this, that whatever that has been done against you can be erased off. There's an erasure, and that's called forgiveness. And if you and the thing you hold against another is actually hurting you. It's like holding on to some poison you are drinking constantly. The error that other one did, the wrong that other one did, you injure yourself. So Shylock needs to know that forgiveness is available for him, and forgiveness is available for another person. Forgiveness gives ability to begin again. If not, what happened in the last hour, what happened yesterday, what happened a week ago, what happened 10 years ago comes at you, and you begin to look at your present scenario in the prejudice and veil of that bad thing that happened to you some time ago. So many people live in this deja vu, is the word of the bad things that happened in the past, and you project it to the future. It can stop today when you know this Good Shepherd, and then your expectation becomes goodness and mercy. Follow me. So you have a repertoire and you have a memory of what good things happened to you. Otherwise you have a repetition of memory of what bad things happened to you. So you are constantly remembering misfits than benefits. That record can be erased. Rather than I was badly treated, how you may turn a new leaf of how you will be well treated. And Sri Lanka desperately needs it at this time. We have a special meeting about this on the 16th Saturday. To participate in it, you just have to drop a WhatsApp to 076 313 4800. And if you have any questions from this little session, drop a WhatsApp to that number 076 313 4800. If you keep on this Shylock nature, what happens is you become a dopamine junkie. That's what I have called that behavior. That is always you have an attack mode and you have a task that is not yet finished. So dopamine is task oriented. You go from one thing to the other. That's what happens when you become a dopamine junkie. Now, children on digital games are also dopamine junkies because they are on a do mode. If we don't give a rest for serotonin to work, dopamine receptors shift from physiological to addictive. As I said, I am Dr. Lalith Mendis. I'm a graduate of Colombo Medical Faculty. I was batch top in every exam in the Colombo Medical Faculty. And in my A-level, I became first in the island. My school is St. Thomas's College. But at that time, I always had arguments on nothing. So I was reading this story in a book called John's Gospel, and in it there was a story of a woman caught in the act of adultery. And according to the punishment of the day in that country, she would be stoned to death, and she was brought before the Good Shepherd. And the Good Shepherd said, "He that hath no sin, cast the first stone." When I was reading this story to argue with a friend who said, "This gospel is true," I said, "What rubbish in this modern era. Who would want to believe such things?" Because I was so proudful about my great achievement with my A-level results. This is just before I entered medical faculty. And then when I was reading that story, the story came up before me. In that story, this woman was standing before the Good Shepherd, and the punishment would be stoned to death. Then the Good Shepherd said, "He that hath no sin, cast the first stone." Then immediately inside me, a voice said, "You know, this is the problem with you. For every little thing, you take up a stone and a big argument," because that was my nature. I would enjoy argument because my head was like an encyclopedia. It just absorbed facts. And I would demolish the argument that I created. Then I didn't realize at the time friends tolerated me, but what a prudish nature that is. But in that twinkling of that moment, as I was looking at this story, reading this story to argue with my friend who said these stories are true, I said, "What rubbish, these are fables." But in the story in that scene, while I was reading it through, I felt as if this same Good Shepherd looked at me and said, "That is your problem. You always have a stone in your mouth, quick to hurt another, to win an argument." I was in the college debating team, both English language and Sinhala language, because our college taught us both languages very well. And in that moment, I got a diagnosis of myself, and I was quite surprised, saying, "Who knows me like this, that you always have a stone in your mouth, and you create arguments and you hurt others?" And that was the hour that a change began. If you need to know the story more, I have a little booklet called Academics to Spirituality. I can post it to you if you would send me your postal address. And my WhatsApp number is 076 313 4800. Thank you for listening.